Having joined me and brought me the magic microphone is Miss Holly Sullivan. Holly is the president of the Connecticut Citizens Defense League. Under her tutelage, they have grown from 27,000 to over 40,000 members. This is a nonpartisan grassroots organization devoted to advocating rights affirmed by the Constitution of the United States, as well as the state of Connecticut. Holly is the legislative advisor on the advisory board for the DC Project, Women for Gun Rights, an educational nonpartisan group of women. I'm also the Arizona State Director, so I have a passion for this as well. Of all 50 states who advocate for Second Amendment education over legislation. Round of applause for Miss Holly. Coming up next over my shoulder, I guess I'll just say, and then they'll pick the right one, right? Sophia Fisher. Sophia is the executive director of Stop the Demand Project, an organization raising awareness to stop the demand for human trafficking. She is also the CEO of Fish Social, a social media management agency helping individuals and companies to grow their audience. Welcome, welcome.
Cheryl?
Absolutely. Be sure to turn your microphone on. And I think I've lost my pen. Coming up next, we have Amanda Riggin. Amanda is the founder of Hungry Heroes, the nonprofit. It was formed out of a tragedy in Riggan's hometown in 2018 after an ambush on officers resulting in the line of duty death. Riggin prayed and asked God how she could be of service. She had received a Traeger grill for Christmas and had recently become obsessed with all things grilling. I too own a Traeger. I understand this. I don't use it as well as you do. She put her new skill to work and decided to cook for the local officers. It was such a blessing seeing the positive impact a warm meal could bring, so she decided to continue and further her mission. Amanda is now serving first responders and military nationwide and has served over 30,000 deserving first responders, military members, and veterans. Welcome. And last but not least is the one and only Lauren Hartnett. She is the New York State Director of the DC Project. She is a paramedic in New York City, the owner of Athena Defense Training. She specializes in fighting for our Second Amendment rights and training and advocates for especially women's Second Amendment rights. Welcome, Miss Lauren. My pen got left there. Would you hand it to me? My pen is on the podium. Would you hand it to me?
Shucks.
Thank you. Well, the topic, I've set it up saying that 100 years ago, the lady sitting on this panel would not even have been able to vote for who represents us in our government. And now today, we are serving in all of these various ways. I believe all of us consider it a tremendous honor, but we also understand that comes with a responsibility, right? To live out the legacy, to live out the inheritance that our founders have laid for us and passed down for us. Individually, I just want to go down the line and I want to engage these ladies and ask them, what is it about the female voice that is unique in the freedom conversation, whether we're talking about gun freedom, freedom of speech, freedom to choose what we inject in our body, whatever the case may be? What is it about the female voice that is so unique in this space? And before I even say that, so often when we lift up women, we simultaneously push down men. And that is not what any of us are about. Absolutely not. My husband's in the audience, Todd, and I could not do any of the things that I do if he didn't do all of the things that he does. And so this is not a, lifting up one to push down the other. This is just saying, what do we do? How do we empower other women to find their unique voice? Holly, I'm going to start with you. What do you think is unique about the way that we can engage the freedom conversation in our nation?
we have a lot of work to do. I think, one of the things that you've heard a recurring theme here is the DC Project, which is a group of 50 women. Originally started as 50 women from 50 states, but man, have we grown. And what I think is one of the most unique things about this organization is truly this sense of building one another up. I've never met a group of women. I've said it many times, is something just happened where all these people came together, and you look around and you go, these are my people. And it's not about who succeeds over who, it's about what can I teach them? What did I learn? Not only what did I learn the easy way, but what did I learn the hard way? What mistakes have we made along the way? And on top of that, to your point about what makes the female voice unique is a lot of us are moms. I'm a single parent. My daughter's going to turn 8 next month. It's pretty empowering for her to recognize things, and seeing her recognize the Bill of Rights, and she says James Madison wrote that, and she's 7. And then I go, man, I'm doing something right, because she's going to be that much better than I was, because I didn't know that then, but I'm giving her the tools to surpass everything that I've accomplished. So I think that's really, we are natural nurturers, and if you can harness that in a way that you use that to empower others, then that's what really protects our freedoms, because it's all about what we can leave for the generation following us.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And Ms. Sophia, you do work trying to help those that are being human trafficked. That's males and females, right? I think so often we think in terms of women being trafficked, but males get trapped into that as well. Is there something unique about you as a woman speaking on behalf of this demographic, this group of people, that you feel perhaps is unique not just to you and your life experience, but to the fact that you're a female?
Definitely. I think that I love that what about America is so unique is that there's opportunity here for both males and females, and I love how you made the distinction that, just because you lift women up, it doesn't mean you have to tear men down, and I hate that in society today. I see a lot of that in the feminist movement, specifically in the anti-human trafficking space. When it comes to sex trafficking specifically, women are predominantly targeted. When it comes to labor trafficking, that looks a little more different. Males tend to be leading in that industry in terms of how many victims there are. But when it comes to empowerment and creating opportunity in this space, it's all about advocating for the vulnerable and believing that everyone has the right to opportunity in this country, and that those who are vulnerable and exploited, we need to be a voice for them. We need to speak up. We need to advocate. And we should believe that in this country, if your rights are being violated, we need to speak up and we need to stand up for you so that you're able to have that opportunity afforded to you.
Beautifully said. Now, Miss Amanda, a lot of our big famous chefs all over the nation are men, right? And yet here you are out there with the Traeger grill. I mean, I think that right there kind of breaks a couple of stereotypes. What would you say causes you to be unique in the space that you fill, or that women in general, what is it that we do or say that you think can move the needle back towards freedom that perhaps our male counterparts couldn't in the ways that we do?
I'm definitely a minority in the barbecue world. If you own a Traeger grill, it's like a Jeep club. It's crazy, especially on social media. I'm used to smelling like brisket with all the wood pellets. I think like people assume, I don't know, I try to encourage my daughter and younger girls and teenagers, like it's not, you can still step out and do something to help others, and you don't have to be a professional chef or have a degree, and you know what I mean? I don't really know if I'm answering that right, but I don't think it doesn't matter if I'm a female or a male. Like, we all can step out and do something to help. And I never thought 3 years ago that I would be cooking on TV, you know? So if a warm meal, like, helps appreciate others who serve us, then it's worth it.
I love that. And, it is true. Just bloom where you're planted, really, is kind of the message. Take the opportunities that God has placed in your pathway and live them out. So that's fantastic. Miss Lauren, you are, like Holly and I, DC Project, driven, right? Steeped in the DC Project. It started out as 50, as Holly said, 50, A-type ladies. You would think you'd get a bunch of A-type ladies together and it could go really wrong. But it has been this amazing thing where we all have eyes focused in the same direction. And I just want to ask you, from your life experience and the things that you do in your professional life, your personal life, your advocacy life, what do you think is unique about the way that women are impacting this freedom conversation?
So women are very dynamic, right? Like, we're so different. And like Cheryl said, having 50 of us in a room, and you would think 50 A-type female personalities are bound to clash and are bound to be drama. And, you picture like catfights in the background, and it's totally not like that. And I think it's because we all walk different walks of life. I'm not a mom, but both Cheryl and Holly are moms. So when we go to DC, our perspectives, or when we go to our state legislators, our perspectives are totally different. I'm a first responder in New York City. So I have that perspective where I could sit there and say, like, hey, this is what's going on, and this is why it's important to me. Holly's version is going to be totally different. And the Second Amendment, the fight has come so far from we want to be able to hunt and we want to be able to protect ourselves from a tyrannical government. It's expanded so much from that, where now it's each individual rights. We don't need a reason. There's no cookie cutter reason for the Constitution. We all have our beliefs in each Bill of Rights because of what we all walk different. We're all different. So what's good for you is not necessarily the best for me, but I'm going to support that because that's just how we are. And if we start picking at each other, and if we start going back and forth and fighting within each other, that's when we fall apart. And that's when our fight falls apart. And I think that we've all pretty much understood that. And I think that's what makes the biggest impact on how we fight on our side, is because of we hold so much more, and we're looking at things from, well, what's good for me, what's good for my family, and how are we going to make this happen, and how are we going to help everybody else make this happen, because that's when it actually will happen.
And we can applaud that. Absolutely. So much passion. I love it. And just looking at our panel up here, what a diverse background, a set of diverse backgrounds we all have. And so starting back with Holly, how did you personally find your unique voice? Was there a specific person in your background that you hear in your head when you feel that you need to speak up? Is it looking at your daughter and knowing whatever you do or don't do in your lifetime is going to impact her lifetime? What would you say caused you to find and use your unique voice?
Ooh. Well, my father, it's so funny when you're a kid. You don't realize that the time that you're spending with the adults in your life is quality time, right? So my dad and I was probably 8 years old, right around the time the age that my daughter is now. We would sit at his workbench and we would reload ammunition. And I would sit there and I'd measure the gunpowder and I'd put it in the casing. We'd pop the primer in and out, and I didn't know any better. And we were just talking. And here I am now, you know, and I've got a child of my own. My father's long gone, and you know, it is profound. I don't reload my ammunition at home. I wish I had the time to do it, but what I do is my daughter watches me as the only female president of any CDL in the country. I have 41,000 gun owners in my organization. It is, aside from being a parent, the most selfless thing I've ever had to do. It is 40 hours a week. It's a volunteer role, and she sees all the time. She also sees the criticism, you know, that comes along with it, that not everybody's your friend. I'm running in my first campaign this November. I'm on our ticket for the Board of Selectmen, and she certainly sees all of that. So she sees the sacrifice. And again, it's kind of the same message. You know, my dad passed it on to me, which was the foundation, and then now I'm showing her the execution, and she's going to do more than I ever will. So, fingers crossed.
That's amazing. Sophia, same question to you. What do you think caused you? Was there a lightning moment, or was it a culmination of things that caused you to find and use your unique voice?
It's a fantastic question. I think that everyone is designed in a unique way by our Father, and everyone has different personality sets. For me, growing up, I would say my parents were an integral part of that process in becoming who I am today. I extremely look up to the both of them. My dad is a lawyer by trade, and he has been a significant influence in my life. My parents have always championed me and supported me, and I think that's why I'm here today. The Lord and my parents for supporting me and believing in me. You know, I had figures in my own home telling me, yes, I believe that you can start a company at, you know, when I first started one at 19 years old, right? I believe that you can do these things, and just because it's not popular and the rest of society isn't doing it, you can do it because I believe in you. And that was a big part in my story to, you know, why I'm here today and why I want to help other people create opportunity as well.
The timer is not ticking. I want to be sure we're not going over, so just... Perfect. I like that. Amanda, I gave you an extra second there to think about that, the answer to the question. Do you have, you know, some voice in your background that you feel you're, you know, fulfilling something that they had perhaps, you know, prophesied for you, for lack of a better word, or placed on your heart? Or was it that exact moment that I read about, that tragedy that happened? What caused you to find and use your unique voice?
I don't think it was a specific person at all. Like I said, if you were in here for my story, I was saved about 5 years ago, and before that I was like aimlessly walking around, unhappy, no peace, you know. And so once I got saved and started doing mission work, I felt on fire for the Lord. I felt I had a purpose. It definitely wasn't Hungry Heroes. I had no idea it was going to turn into that. But I saw the puzzle pieces that the Lord was putting together at the time. Now, if I look back, definitely I got my first girl on Christmas. Mike Doty died in January. Had no idea what I was doing. And also, this was 3 years ago, so this was before all the police brutality. This was before our nation turned upside down. So I think the Lord was preparing me for when it turned upside down. I didn't know what I was doing at first, but now I can fly to California and cook for 5,000 people at one time. So it definitely, He gets all the glory. I think someone was praying for me back in the day. No idea who. Maybe my grandma. I have no idea. But I'm like the only person from my family that went to church by myself, intimidated. I don't know how to say the words in the Bible. I didn't care at the time. So I don't know who was praying for me, but thank you, Lord, for whoever you were, because I wouldn't be here today.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Miss Lauren, you never have any problem speaking up, But did you grow into this boisterousness, or tell us about your journey? What was it that caused you to find and use your unique voice?
So my mom always tells a story about when I was 2. It was my first dance recital. The dance recital ended. I felt it wasn't done, so I walked back on stage and started dancing for an audience that thought I was done. And I guess so it's been with me since I've been 2. But about 12 years ago, I went through my own personal experiences and traumas as far as what has driven me to be here. And as I've healed from that, and it wasn't only through firearms and advocacy, it was a long journey. It wasn't one thing that helped me heal from the traumas and from the abuse that I suffered when I was younger. It was a bunch of things. EMS was one of those things. EMS has helped me in so many ways that I didn't realize until after the fact, where I was like, my job saved my life. And then when I started getting into firearms, just out of pure luck, like, hey, let's go to the range and fall in love and now realize this is my life, I realized how hard it was where I lived. And then when I realized that constitutional right was that hard, what other constitutional rights are that hard? What other liberties are this difficult? Like, why am I spending $400 a year to exercise a constitutional right and take 3 days off of work in order to be approved to exercise that constitutional right? How is that constitutional? How is that even okay? Right. So a lot of it was just getting so frustrated and just being like, this doesn't make sense. And I question everything by nature. Nothing is ever black and white. So I question everything by nature. And if something doesn't add up, like, I'm going to fight for it till I find an answer. And then if it's an answer I don't like, I'm going to change the answer.
Dance recital, right?
Exactly.
I like it. That's great. Back to you, Holly. This next question has to do with, being against the grain, swimming upstream, going counter to the culture. Over this last year and a half, we've had gun sales off the charts. My husband and I owned a gun shop. Through that time, we had the extreme privilege of being able to serve people who themselves were a little deer in headlights, thought they would never see themselves become gun owners, but realized through the course of COVID and riots and everything going on that we really are our own individual first responder. And so to be able to serve people who were all over the political spectrum, right? All over the map as far as whether they thought, yeah, someday I definitely am going to own a gun. It's just a budgetary issue versus, people way on the other end where they're like, I cannot believe I'm actually purchasing this particular tool today. It was a tremendous honor. But the culture would say that the average gun owner is no one that looks like the lady sitting on the stage up here, right? And so that goes against the culture. And over this past year and a half, I think it's more than half of the brand new first-time gun owners are women, right? That goes against the culture. So in speaking of that, in your own personal life, being the only female president of a Citizens Defense League, that right there is counterculture, right? Talk to us about whether that opens the doors to opportunity because you have a blank canvas, or if it's like you really are having to use hydrostatic pressure to just push to get the movement that you need.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt this is not an easy battle, right? We are in the state of Connecticut. We're not only one of the most far left states right now, but when it comes to our gun rights, it happened very quickly. I live about 6 miles from Sandy Hook Elementary School, and I'm a young mom. I'm a single mom. Doing it alone. And I'll tell you, when I would go to PTA meetings and things like that, and everything is anti-gun, and it's just accepted, I'd be like, I disagree. And if I had had the opportunity to be there, maybe things could have been different. And maybe if we did the things that we're supposed to do, it could be different. And then as I grew into this role, and now I'm very outspoken. For anybody who's not familiar with the legislation that passed after the tragedy at Sandy Hook, it was a 3-legged bill. And it was supposed to be that this would never happen again. There were 3 parts to it. One was gun control. The second was supposed to be funding for mental health. Still not funded. The third part was school security. It is still not done in the state of Connecticut. I have been a voice for this since it happened. Additionally, when we get into the constant barrage of every single legislative session that comes up, the ideas that come across from the other side, from the anti-gun side, that is pushing for more and more gun control, disadvantages women. When we talk about for example, ammo taxes. So there is one legislator who she stands there and she talks about how, the gun violence, it's violence against women. And when I get up there and I have the opportunity to testify and I talk about this ammo tax, I mean, she wants like 30 cents on every round. Imagine you're shooting a 22 and you're going to pay 30 cents to the government just on every single round of 22 ammo. Who can afford that? Well, I'll tell you who can't afford it. It's a single mom can't afford it. So the person that lives in the gated community, they're going to have no problem buying ammunition. But the single mom that wants to be able to go to the range and practice and be proficient and develop the muscle memory so that if she needs it at 2 in the morning, she has it, she can't afford it. So I think we really need to change the dynamic of the conversation and talk about how does it reflect real life Americans today. Who is that real life American? And when it comes to gun owners, it's women right now. So really look at the legislation and the bills that are coming out and think about how that impacts the new group of gun owners and speak for them, be their advocate.
That's awesome. You can applaud. So much truth. I think it just hit them. Their hair was blown back. But that's amazing, and thank you so much for fulfilling those roles. And I love, that the example you're setting for your daughter. But I also know that is such a sacrifice of the time that the two of you get to spend together. And so thank you for that. Sophia, in the world that you are occupying, the field that you are in, I'm not even sure what the cultural aspects are, but again, is there opportunity? You are possibly filling a space that there was a vacancy that we didn't even realize there was, or is it a little bit of an uphill slog in some way?
It's pretty uphill. I was talking with someone in July, and I was telling them, about the work that I do and, the horrors of human trafficking in America around the globe. And after our conversation, he said, "Thanks for ruining my day." It's uncomfortable. I get it. But think about the people that are trafficked, right? That's where the focus needs to be. I'm uncomfortable too. It's not fun to look into. But it needs to be done if we want to see change. So in terms of it being countercultural, I think we can all agree on some level that human trafficking is wrong. Sadly, it's politicized a lot of times today, and you'll see the right and the left have their different takes on it. But everyone agrees that it's wrong. That's what I'd like to see more of. Us coming to an understanding of that, working together on legislative issues more at the state level. I think that it's unpopular, right? In the sense that it's not talked about enough. So I'll get pushback from that on social media. I notice my engagement rates go down because people don't want to have the discussion and they're not ready to. Ignorance is bliss, right? So in order to, bring this to the forefront, we need to continue to push it because ultimately these are people that are being stripped of their rights. And if we want to advocate for opportunity, we need to be for opportunity for all people.
Boy, beautifully said. Beautifully said. And so the culture then I guess you're fighting against is the happy talk, right? The happy space. We all just want to feel good And here comes Sophia. She's going to talk to us about that stuff that hurts my heart.
That too, and I also think that the culture, and I was guilty of this, is operating on a narrative that doesn't exist. You know, I talked about this earlier in my speech, if you caught some of it, but the idea that human trafficking looks like the white van or the Taken movie series, it doesn't look like that. Most of the time, human trafficking victims are not kidnapped. It's usually through somebody that's familiar. So when we talk about culture, it's what does the culture actually believe about this issue, and what can we do to equip the culture with what's true? So what we're working to do at Stop the Demand Project especially is to talk about how that narrative doesn't really stand true in our society, what does actually exist, and what can we do to equip people that are concerned about our society as well as victims of this issue.
Awesome. That's great. So, Amanda, one of my favorite books is called The Obstacle is the Way, right? So the idea is there's a rock in front of you, and you use that rock as a launch pad. And so when I think about the space that you fill, right, it's very service-oriented. It's very beautiful. It's, it's a very selfless space. But again, as you said, you're a rarity, being a female chef who grills, right? Where would you say you are? How is that culture? Is it welcoming? Is there sort of a vacuum that you're able to fill? Is there pushback that you have to be resourceful and clever in getting around? Talk to us about that.
I haven't experienced a lot of negativity. When I first had the viral video, I did, and I had to get tough skin really quick. I'm super sensitive, and I made the mistake to tell my mom, like, look at this, and she's like wanting to respond. But now, if you, I had atheist pages mocking me.
I'm feeding people and I'm getting trolled. I mean, come on. What's wrong with us?
Yeah, well, people get jealous. So I haven't really had a lot of negative feedback. And honestly, this past year, when all the police brutality and riots and stuff like that were going on and all the defunding the police, man, we got more donations than ever. Because if you're pro-police, you're so pissed off, you're so mad at what's going on. It's like, yay, Hungry Heroes. If you back the blue, we back you. And so at first I thought, this is going to affect us and what we do in our mission. Complete opposite. We had more support than ever then. So
that's awesome. I love that. It's like give us a reason to dig a little deeper. And when we're seeing somebody, swaths of people that we love and respect, being disrespected, it's almost like, well, thank you, trolls. Appreciate that, right? All right, talking about culture, to the woman who lives in New York and is a 2A advocate, a gun advocate, how does that even work?
I mean, by every definition of what a millennial from New York City is supposed to be, I'm literally the complete opposite. And every time I do a conference like this or I speak like this, without fail, no less than 5 times, you should just leave New York. You should just leave New York. Just leave New York. Like, it's that easy. Just leave. Obviously, up until now, I never really had to think about it. But before then, my answer was always the same. If I don't stay and if I don't continue to fight and continue to voice my opinion, who else is going to do it? Because if I leave New York, and if other like-minded individuals like me leave New York, who else is protecting what we have there? Who else is fighting? Who else is letting you guys know what's going on so that you could protect your hometowns? Like Joe Borelli said before, that's my city councilman, by the way. So I told you guys I wasn't the only Republican from New York City. But, like he said, what happens in my hometown is usually the precedent for what they try to do in yours. So if we're not there fighting it and bringing awareness to it and letting you know what's going on, how are you going to be prepared to fight it? And that is probably one of my biggest flaws is, like, I'll suffer for everybody else's happiness. That's just who I am. But I will stay there as long as I possibly can to continue to fight for as long as I possibly can and continue to be that counteracting and that counterculture so that it doesn't happen anywhere else.
Well, and thank you for doing that. So I think,
Pay me back at some point.
what's that?
Pay me back at some point.
Yeah. I think we have 3 of us are moms, right? Only one of us is a grandma. That would be me. I think because I'm a mom, because I'm a grandma, I think a lot about legacy. I think a lot about passing along what's important to the next generation. As we were starting this panel and we were talking about, what inspired us and helped us find our unique voice, there were several of us that did mention, our dads, right? Our Heavenly Father, right? And so that again shows that it really is a collaborative effort to protect our freedoms and pass along our legacy. But I very much look at our Constitution and our Bill of Rights as the greatest inheritance that anyone has ever been given, absolutely for free. All I had to do was be born. That was it, and it was mine. And people that want to say, well, when it was written, it wasn't written for you, because as I started my whole talk in the 19th Amendment, we weren't allowed to vote because we were women. But as my very good friend, I think a lot of us know him, Maj Touré says, I don't care who you wrote it for, it's mine now, right? So in thinking about legacy, passing things along, I'm going to start first with one of the ladies who isn't a mom, because maybe that's a little bit of a different thought process about how you do that. And is that a driving force for you, that you're trying to protect and pass along our freedoms? And I'll start with you, Sophia.
I think that's an important discussion to have, and you're right, it is different for me in interacting with that and thinking about legacy, considering the fact I'm not a mom yet. What's most important to me is that if I ever am a mom one day, and if I have kids, right, that they know the Lord, right? I think government freedom is awesome, but first and foremost, I love the Lord, and I would hope and pray that my children one day know Him as well, and at the end of the day, that's really all that matters.
That's fantastic. Yes. Another incredible inheritance, but we don't, we have to own it individually. It's a little different than this. The other young lady who is not yet encountering parenthood, what does the idea of legacy mean to you and the work that you do?
I don't know why you're laughing at me like that. If it's because of what I think, it's because of. So as much as it's a legacy, it's what's going on right now, right? And just because I'm not a mom, like I have nieces and nephews and cousins, and I still have family, and I still have a world and a country that I love so much. And that's enough of a legacy for me. Like right now, it's let me, my government is going to do stuff. My politicians are going to do some stuff. We're going to elect them. They're going to go up. They're going to do some stuff. And then they're going to expect me to owe them. I don't owe you anything. You didn't do it for me. You're doing it because that was a job you were elected to do. But why are you responsible for that? You're supposed to listen to my voice. You're not supposed to go do what you want and then convince me that it was the right decision. No. You're supposed to listen to your constituents, listen to our voices, listen to what your people want. And if you don't align with them, then, I don't know, run for a different office, move somewhere else. Those are your constituents that voted for you. And that's a legacy in itself. What are you leaving behind? You're impacting an entire community of people. You can't just go up there and do whatever you feel like doing and saying, oh, that's it. This is what I think is right, so this is what we're going to do. That's not what we elected you to do. And not forgetting that they do that, and if we don't hold them accountable for that, then, again, like, what's the point of the legacy if we're going to lose it in the first place? So it's like none of these things are black and white. As I said before, I love Cheryl's kids and her grandbabies, and I love Holly's daughter, and I love all of my friends' kids. And if we start losing it now, like, I know that they're not going to have anything, and I don't need to have my own child in order to do that. It means as much to me as it's going to mean to them and to their families.
Absolutely. Amanda, how do you engage with child or children? One daughter. How do you engage with your daughter on the ideas of freedoms and our liberties? Is it just through the examples that you're setting, or do you have like discussions about it?
I would say it's through my examples. She serves with me. She loves it. We were feeding troops in Columbia, South Carolina one time, and I had to work. I was still at FedEx, and my mom sent me a video, and I think she was like 10, and she got up in front of the whole entire, whatever you want to call it, all of this. It was like 200 soldiers, and told my story. And so I think by example, she's learning how to have a voice and how to stand up. She sees, basically I had her so young, she had to grow up with me. So she has seen me at my lowest of lows, my highest of highs. And so I think I feel like the Lord has equipped me to do this, and I don't feel worthy a lot of times. And even coming here, I don't feel equipped or if I am even giving anything, but I still try, and it's not about me at the end of the day. It's about everyone else that we're trying to serve and appreciate. And so I think by my example, she'll make a difference. Truly do.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And yes, absolutely. And Holly, we're down to our last few minutes, but I absolutely do want to hear your take on this. Again, you spend a lot of time serving others. Takes time out of your household. How are you able to help your daughter understand the importance of what it is you're doing?
Yeah, it's interesting. 4 nights a week is committed to meetings. It's Monday night Republican Town Committee, Tuesday night CCDL, Wednesday night campaign meeting, Thursday night DC Project. My daughter's grown accustomed to the fact that mom is tied up 2.5, 3 hours a night, 4 out of 5 nights a week. And then I try to make time for her. And a lot of the time, we just have to have those conversations about why is it important that you do what you do. And she does get it. She might only be 7, but she's seen it. I mean, I was walking around pregnant with her in my belly at my first CCDL rally when they were looking to pass the legislation after Sandy Hook. And she understands. Sometimes she'll say, I don't want to talk about this right now. And sometimes she just wants to be silly. And you know what? Sometimes I need silly too. And that's where we go to Disney World and we turn off and and that's where I have an amazing board. I have, a vice president, a treasurer, and a secretary that I rely on. My vice president is, I'd be lost without him. He's my, not only just the rock that I know can hold the organization together. They're doing a big fundraiser today, and but I can rely on them because sometimes I do have to say that sometimes I need balance, right? Because what you want to show them the path to freedom and liberty, but you also have to give them a home life. And so that is a very, very fine balance, especially as a single parent, to do both. But it's nobody's perfect in this, and we do the very best that we can, and just pray that, that you're finding a happy medium, and she's a pretty happy kid, so I think it's working out.
She really is. She is just beautiful with those blonde curls. Oh, my stars. All right, so we have 5 minutes. This is a super quick lightning round. I want to leave people with a sense of what they can do, because too often I think as citizens we've just abdicated way too much, which is why what Lauren was saying is happening. People get elected and then they're like feral cats just running around doing whatever they want. Because we haven't continued to hold their feet to the fire for what we've hired them to do with our votes. And it does come down to each individual person. Each of us has to be involved. And we can pick our favorite topic. My lane is the Second Amendment. I wear all these hats, but they're all in the Second Amendment lane. And so what would you say? I'm going to start with Lauren. We're going to fly this way in 4 minutes and just tell people what they can be doing right now.
Find a cause, find an organization, and get involved. They're going to be able to provide the resources, they're going to be able to provide the information, they're going to equip you with everything that you need. And it's something that I say, get something that you're passionate about, because you'll be more likely to follow through with it. So find something that you love and that you care passionately about. Second Amendment, feeding first responders in military, human trafficking, Second Amendment. It's like, find something you love doing so that way, or that you're passionate about, so you are more likely to follow through and find an organization and get involved. They'll equip you with the resources that you need.
Amanda, go.
Step out of your comfort zone. It's easy to sit behind a TV or a keyboard and just assume and judge and get pissed off at the nation, right? So step out. The Lord will equip you, you know what I mean? So just, I don't really know. Just move your feet.
Move your feet. Be the hands and feet, right? I love it. Sophia.
Get involved on the local level. A lot of human trafficking it's in most zip codes in America. Get involved, whether that be donating or volunteering. There is not a shortage of work that you can do. If that's something you're not looking to do, talk about it at your dinner table. The ripple effect is a very real thing. If you tell someone and they tell someone else and you are able to educate them, that is huge. So I encourage you to be an advocate at whatever level that may be, and advocate for the vulnerable of society.
And she left you with the perfect setup with the word educate, right? Harkening back to the DC project. So Holly, go.
I agree. I can't agree with everybody more. Being involved, whether it's at the municipal level, I mean, simple things like Board of Ed, be on your zoning committee. Find out, is there something going on? Are they looking to pass a zoning ordinance that doesn't allow people to shoot on their own property? It could be that simple, but it goes beyond that. Get out of your comfort zone. It is so easy to stay in our echo chamber and talk amongst ourselves, and especially in running for my first public office, you start to get these questions from folks that you go, well, that's different. I haven't had to think about it that way before. And that ripple effect is true. Getting involved in municipal government is true. Just being boots on the ground is true. Every little bit of it helps, and every little bit of it is effective. Be involved in discussions if you're on campus. Talk to other clubs and organizations that aren't on the right, because you're so much middle ground, and that's where you start to have actual dialogue. But we don't have dialogue if we stay in our echo chambers.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate each and every one of you for taking the time to be with us here today, for everything that you're doing in your individual personal lives. And I thank all of the team that put in the work to put all of this together and give us this opportunity, and everyone watching online as we're streaming. Change is possible. And why do we know that? Because we are seeing it in real time. But generally, it feels like the change is going against what our Constitution was set up for, and against the trajectory towards freedom. So just get involved. Do what you can do. Don't try to do everything. Pick one thing that you can get in deeply involved in. Support people who are running for office that will be public servants. We have plenty of politicians. We need public servants. And with that, I thank you so much for your time and your attention, and I will be watching to see what you do with the things that you've learned over the course of this weekend. Thank you so much.